A friend calls you late at night, wrecked over a decision. In 10 minutes, you say the right thing. Calm, clear, kind. You always know what other people should do. Then your turn comes, and you freeze. Weeks of circling, deciding nothing. You decide you are a hypocrite, but you are not a hypocrite. You are running a glitch researchers call Solomon's paradox, named for the king who was wise for everyone but himself. By the end, you will know why your mind turns sharp for other people and blunt for you, where that split came from, and the one shift in how you talk to yourself that hands your own advice back. The name comes from an old story. Solomon was the king people traveled for miles to consult, the one who could untangle any quarrel dragged into his court. 2 women, 1 baby, a single clever sentence, and the real mother revealed herself. People called him the wisest man alive. Yet in his own house he was a disaster. He married hundreds of times, taxed his people until they seethed, and left a kingdom so brittle it cracked in 2 the moment he died. Brilliant for the whole world, foolish at home. 3,000 years later, 2 psychologists decided to find out whether the same split is sitting inside ordinary people like you. Igor Grossman and Ethan Cross built a study that is almost cruel in how simple it is. They gathered people who were in committed relationships and asked them to picture the worst. For half of them, the scenario was their own partner being unfaithful. For the other half, it was a close friend's partner being unfaithful. Same betrayal, same questions afterward. The only thing that moved was whose life the wound belonged to. Then they measured how wisely each person reasoned about the mess. Wisdom here has nothing to do with intelligence or a test score. It means a specific set of moves your mind can either make or fail to make. Admitting the limits of what you actually know. Seeing the situation from more than one side. Expecting things to shift instead of assuming this feeling is permanent. Hunting for a compromise instead of needing to win. The people reasoning about their friend's betrayal did all of it. They were humble, balanced, open to being wrong. The people reasoning about their own did almost none of it. Same brain, same room, same hour. And the wisdom drained out the instant the problem had their name on it. Why would that happen? The answer is a quiet force called psychological distance. When a problem belongs to someone else, you watch it from the outside, like a scene through a window. You can see the whole room, the exits, the furniture, the way out. When the problem is yours, you are not watching the scene at all. You are standing inside it, soaked in every detail, flooded with everything it seems to say about you. Cross calls that flooded state immersion. Immersion feels like taking your problem seriously. It is actually the thing that stops you from solving it because you are pressed too close to the glass to see the shape of the room you are trapped in. So Grossman and Cross tried one more thing, and this is the part that matters most. They took people back into their own problem, the same one that had just made them foolish, and asked them to think about it from a distance. To picture it from across the room. To watch it the way they would watch it happen to somebody else. And the gap closed. The very people who had reasoned poorly about their own lives began reasoning about them as wisely as they had about their friends. Nothing changed but the vantage point. The wisdom was never gone. It had been locked on the far side of a window the whole time, and distance was the key that fit the lock. Özlem Ayduk, who has spent years studying this trick with Cross, found the same thing again and again. Step back to the fly on the wall, and the emotional flooding drops, the racing settles, and the part of you that thinks clearly finally gets a word in. Here is the strange part, though. If you can reason this well about your own life, the second you step back from it, why did your mind ever bolt the door in the first place? Why would you evolve to be brilliant for other people and nearly useless for yourself? To answer that, you have to leave the laboratory and travel back about 200,000 years into the only living conditions your brain was ever actually shaped for. For almost the entire human story, you did not live anything like this. You lived in a small band, a camp of maybe 30 or 40 people who had known you since the day you were born. And here is the thing modern life has quietly deleted from your world. You were almost never alone with a hard decision. The anthropologist Richard B. Lee spent years among the Juhuanzi, hunter-gatherers of the Kalahari, and one of the things he documented is how a camp actually makes up its mind. Nobody wandered off to decide the big things in private. Where to move next, how to divide a kill, how to cool a feud between two families before it turned to blood. It got talked out in the open, sometimes for days, around the fire, everybody leaning in with an opinion until the group drifted toward something like agreement. Sit with what that did to your brain. The hardest problems of a human life were processed out loud by many people, from the outside. The distance you now have to manufacture with a psychology trick used to be built into the very walls of the camp. You never needed a private tool for reasoning wisely about your own dilemmas, because your dilemmas were never only yours. They belonged to the whole circle, and the circle saw them through a window because to everyone except you, a window is exactly what they were looking through, and there was a second pressure leaning on you from the same direction. In a band, the person who gave good counsel was worth their weight in water. If you could calm a fight or spot the smart move nobody else had seen, people owed you, protected you, kept you close to the fire. Being wise for others earned you a place in the group. Being wise for yourself earned you almost nothing, because the group already had your problems covered. So the wiring that got rewarded, generation after generation after generation, was the wiring aimed outward, at everyone else's trouble. Natural selection is a miser. It does not build a second private tool for a job the tribe already does for free, and it does not sharpen a skill that nobody in the camp ever claps for. Remember what the stakes actually were. A person cast out of the band did not stride off to become gloriously independent. They died. Alone on that landscape, without the many eyes and many hands of the group, you were simply food. So a brain that made you useful to others, that made people want to keep you around, was a brain that lived long enough to pass itself on. The outward-facing counselor inside you is not a charming personality quirk. It is a survival machine, tuned across 10,000 generations for a world in which your problems were always handled inside a ring of people who could see you clearly. Now look at the life you are actually living. The ring is gone. You make the largest decisions a human being can make. The job, the move, the person. The message your thumb is hovering over at midnight, and you make almost all of them alone, inside your own skull, in the one voice your brain trusts least for the task. The counsel that used to arrive from 30 people around a fire now has to come from a single mind, and that mind is the one perspective evolution never bothered to equip for advising itself. That is the mismatch in one sentence. You are not worse at your own life than your ancestors were at theirs. You are attempting something they almost never had to do. Facing your hardest choices with no counsel left in the room. That is why the friend on the phone gets the very best of your thinking and you are left with the worst of it. It was never hypocrisy. It is a missing chair. The camp that used to sit in a circle around your problem has shrunk down to one exhausted person, and that person is standing far too close to the fire to make out the shape of anything. Which is exactly why the repair is so small and exactly why it works. You cannot summon the whole band back into your kitchen at 1 a.m, but you can rebuild the single thing the band actually gave you, the view from outside, and you can do it with nothing more than a change in the words you use. Grossman and Cross found that the entire vantage point can flip on something as tiny as a pronoun. When you turn your problem over as an I, you drop straight back inside it and the flooding starts. When you address yourself by name instead, when you frame the question the way a friend across the table would frame it, you take one clean step back to the window. So the next time you are stuck, do not ask what you should do. Ask what you would tell a friend standing in this exact situation. Better still, put your own name in the sentence. Not why can I never figure this out, but a plain question about what this particular person, the one with your name, ought to do next. It sounds far too silly to change anything. It is one of the most reliably tested findings in this entire corner of psychology. The moment your problem is spoken in the third person, the wise reasoning you hand out to everyone else for free comes quietly back online, and points, for once, at you. You are not learning a new skill tonight. You already own it. You prove you own it every single time somebody you love calls you in the dark and leaves the call steadier than they arrived. You are only learning to stand where you have always been able to stand for other people, and then turn, and look back at your own life through the same clear glass. So the next time it is you, late at night, wrecked over a decision, do not wait for the phone to ring. Be the friend on the other end of the line. Ask yourself what you would tell them, Say your own name out loud and then listen to the answer you already knew. You always knew what other people should do. It turns out one of those people was you,